also put the event in context. Please put your hands together for Mr. Andrew Akoto. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Bernard. And I see that you wanted a lot of energy going in the room right from the start. And if I look at the backdrop and the smile of the lady that is glancing at us, I don't think we need any more motivation to be very, very expectant and hopeful for a very, very enjoyable discussion this morning. Let me first of all start by thanking all of you for joining us. Special welcome to the representative of the Minister of Finance. We have the Acting Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Mr. Anthony Sapon. You're welcome. We have the UNDP Country Rep, Mr. Niloy Banerjee. Representatives from ministries, departments, and agencies of government, CEOs and business leaders, invited guests, friends for the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this year's KPMG UNDP Post-Budget Forum, where we discuss how government's 2026 budget statement and economic policy will address the pressing economic challenges that impact businesses, communities, and the nation at large. As partners in Ghana's development, KPMG undertakes an annual pre-budget survey. The objective of this survey is to engage businesses across various sectors to assess how economic policies affect their operations and gather their perspectives on their expectations of government's fiscal priorities for the new budget. Our aim is to provide evidence-based insights that help align national policy with private sector needs and long-term development goals. Over the years, we have consistently shared the results of this survey with the Ministry of Finance as our own token contribution to policy discussions that shape Ghana's business environment. The 5 key priorities from this year's pre-budget survey were the usual suspects: affordable finance, energy supply, consistent, tax reforms, workforce skill development, and of course, matters to do with sustainability and green tax incentives. It is gratifying to see that these priorities areas that were identified have mostly been incorporated into the 2026 budget presentation, demonstrating the relevance of our insights into shaping the national discourse. On Thursday, 13th November, the Minister of Finance presented the 2026 budget themed Resetting for Growth, Jobs, and Economic Transformation, which prioritizes macroeconomic stability, economic transformation, and job creation, security and social protection as the anchors on which growth will be unlocked in 2026. Our discussions today will delve into how the 2026 national budget can translate policies into actionable results by supporting infrastructure development, strengthening small, medium-sized enterprises, fostering industrialization, and enhancing workforce readiness through technical and vocational training. I call on all participants here present, as well as online, to engage constructively by actively participating, challenging ideas, proposing solutions, and collaborating to support long-term economic growth to improve the well-being of Ghanaians and businesses. That is at the heart of the matter, the execution of the budget. So let me end once again by thanking all of you for your commitment to this process and your continued partnership with KPMG. Good morning.
Wow. I think that was such a great foundation. Let's applaud Mr. Akoto one more time. Thank you very much indeed. So this is the KPMG Post-Budget Forum in association with, I think that's the word to use, the UNDP. When I saw this man's name, my heart skipped a beat, because when I was studying economics at the university, there was a textbook with your surname, which was terrified us. I think the guy was called Abhijit Banerjee. Yeah. But you are not that guy. Are you related to him? He's your cousin, my God. No. There's another one called Domoda Gujarati, Econometrics. Terrible. It was a good book. It just terrorized you whilst you were learning it. So our resident rep for UNDP is Niloy Banerjee. Not to be confused with the economist, but I'm sure he's done some economics in his life. Let's welcome him to bring us some remarks from the UNDP perspective. Thank you.
Nice to be called out for a Nobel Prize-winning economist. So you'll hear brilliant ideas today. Don't forget to clap for me as well. Good morning. Good morning, colleagues. Very nice to be here. I see our friends from KPMG, Andy and others. I see 24-hour economy-ish. Look up from your cell phone, please. Ghana Revenue Authority just stepped out, but all old partners, and great to be in this space, collaborating with you. And looking at what is close to the heart of UNDP. The survey throws up really, for us, 2 points very, very urgently. One is the cost of capital in the country. Ghana's unemployment rate still remains pretty high. And if you look at the age group of 15 to 24, it's extremely high. It's well in the 30s, 35% or so unemployed. Which means, colleagues, there will not be enough jobs, as informal jobs, for many people who are just coming of age now. So developing enterprise, getting small and medium enterprises going, making people job creators rather than job seekers is going to be prime. It's going to be Africa's challenge of this century, but it's certainly going to be a challenge in Ghana. I've come to know and love this country for 1 year now, so it's something I'm deeply conscious about. And the second issue is, if we do crowd in private sector financing, whether it's to SMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises, or the formal private sector, anyone who starts business here, the cost of starting business is extremely high. The cheapest SME loan is 17% rate of interest. So, colleagues, if we can really get the budget, which is our principal policy instrument, to work for making the cost of doing business lower. Otherwise, we will not have enough jobs for our young people. And that's absolutely critical to UNDP. If you read the survey, you'll see that SDG 8, which is jobs and economic opportunities, it comes up as one of the leading areas. Also comes up health and education as the other leading areas, SDG 3 and SDG 4. But for us, nothing is more important than crowding in private sector capital. And I implore the government to please de-risk initial investment. So the government can come in and bear first loss for startups. If this can be done, we will have a thriving culture of startups. I was just telling Andy, my last posting was Malaysia, which is a very similar economy, very similar economic structure, but with 7 times the per capita income. That's my seat. Just kidding, just kidding. I have been unseated before. Oh, no. I have been unseated before. So colleagues, I won't take much more of your time. It's just I have 5 minutes to speak, and we in India love to speak on and on and on. So just to say that let's try and de-risk capital. Let's make the cost of doing business lower. And thank you for supporting the SDGs, and a huge thank you to KPMG for being our fellow traveler on this. Thank you.
Wonderful. So I'm not sure which title you prefer, resident rep for UNDP or cousin of a Nobel Prize winning economist. Which one is easier to use? And by the way, that MIT economist did some really good work on poverty. And those of you interested in poverty reduction, you need to read him because he has a lot of practical ideas on reducing global poverty. And I guess you are on that line as well. So thank you so much, resident rep. We're going to have 2 key speeches. Now, this program is divided into 3. We have a few speeches to lay the foundation, and then we'll give you 6 slides. Those 6 slides essentially cover the key aspects of the KPMG pre-budget work, and then 4 highlights of the main budget, all in 6 slides. And then we're going to bring up a panel. We've tried to mix the panel up nicely with different sectors. AGI is on the panel, a macroeconomist is on the panel, and then we also have a couple of people from within the tax side of things. A KPMG rep is on the panel as well, Ministry of Finance on the panel, and a development practitioner from UNDP, trying to mix it up nicely. And we've also created about 5 themes around the panel discussion, and we'll explain that to you as the program proceeds. We'd like to make it interactive, so as we go through the discussion, we would be coming to you as well for interjections or comments. We are privileged to have a very rich mix of people. When I have the full list, I'll introduce them so you know who we have here. But I'd like to proceed now to invite the representative of the Minister of Finance, and he's in the person of Sam Ackhurst. For many, many years, he was head of macroeconomics at the ministry. I don't know if your role has changed. Forgive me if it has. But he definitely works at the Ministry of Finance, and his name is Sam Ackhurst. So please put your hands together for me, for Sam, as he comes to, in his own capacity, and also read the minister's comments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Please don't mind the laptop. I'm used to carrying it to give me confidence. So let me start a bit with the courtesies. I know we have the country manager for KPMG. We just heard a speech from the resident rep from the United Nations Development Program. We have the IMF rep here, the acting commissioner for GRA. I have my colleagues also here from the Ministry of Finance. I know by now you know that I'm from Ministry of Finance. And then we also have the esteemed panelists. I hear members of the media. And ladies and gentlemen, I extend the heartfelt apologies from Dr. Kesiel Atuforsen, the Honorable Minister for Finance and the Acting Minister for Defense. I'm sure by this introduction alone, you know how busy he is at this time, and he had to be engaged in another pressing national assignment. So I have the honor, the singular honor, to deliver this keynote address on his behalf. I would also like to take opportunity to thank the KPMG for this annual culture. It's not been the first time that we have been here, and you've been keeping it going on and on. And as Bernard mentioned, this is the first of the 2026. So this is a very critical position for us. But as I look on the screen, you see that the title here is Post-Budget Forum, but couldn't help to reflect on some of the historical dimensions of the annual budget statement itself. Way back from Ghana's independence to the 80s, the title was the budget statement, just like how it's been put there as Post-Budget Forum. But in 1986, That's about 40 years ago. So it's insightful to notice that it was changed to budget statement and economic policy. And the reason is not far-fetched. For those who were alive and remember then, as part of the economic recovery program and structural adjustment program, what many people did not know was that the focus of the budget changed from mere statistics, adding revenue and expenditure. In fact, at the time, expenditure was first, because the budget was more of spending, and revenue was second, and the deficit, etc., were residual. But we changed the name 40 years ago, and we are celebrating that, and it's important we reflect on some of these dimensions to date. Now, in all the others, they were all enshrined in the Constitution, the first Republican, second, and the third. But with what we have here, it's enshrined in Article 179 and Section 21 of the PFM law. Now, that provides the context for why the finance minister presented the budget. But at the same time, it is important to reflect on the theme, which you see also right below there. So I'm focusing on what is on the screen. And the title is Resetting for Growth, Jobs, and Economic Transformation. And as you can see, it is showing 3 pillars. This triad of critical pillars are the growth, the jobs, and economic transformation. Before the panelists come, I would like to bring this down a bit in terms of its explanations. The growth component, if anybody here wants to understand the health of an economy in a single word, the GDP becomes the natural variable. But I can see there are many academics here. It's always a questionable position because I see UNDP here mentioning social development, poverty, etc., because it has its flaws as far as poverty is concerned. And I think we've been hearing in the media space how the GDP is not addressing issues of poverty. But there are reasons for that. For the first time, you see the Ghana Statistical Service has presented monthly proxies of GDP. We had always had annual, we went to quarter and monthly for a reason. It's not easy to calculate those figures on a high-frequency basis. Now, similar with poverty indicators, unless you do a census or survey, which cannot be done every year, you will not naturally have those figures. So if you don't see it in the budget, it's not because you don't prioritize it, but it's because the allocation of the resources, which is a key part of the budget, is engineered towards those poverty angles. So today, one of the major things I want to leave you with is that GDP growth still reigns supreme, and it's not surprising, it's the first angle of the theme. Now, going on to jobs, again, linking to the poverty side, GDP, without it affecting the people, is meaningless. And here, we are guided by the same Constitution, Article 36, where you have economic objectives. And it even adds happiness of the people as an economic objective. But having a job, taking care of your families, are key indicators of happiness. So we're happy to also see that on the second angle, you have the jobs as a key part of the theme. Then lastly, you have the economic transformation. Now here, it's a means to an end and also an end on itself. So when you pick the budget, you see key angles of the pathway, like for example, the big push infrastructure project. My colleague director of budget is here. In budgeting parlance, they call those kind of projects as mega projects. There are many micro projects, but these are mega projects in that kind of language. They are catalytic because they lead up to economic transformation. And you also would see the construction of a 1,200 megawatt power plant. I don't remember the last time we had anything like this. It could be at independence time. So these are mega projects that are transformational in nature. And then our last speaker made reference to the green transition. And that is also a very key position that we find in the 2026 budget. Now, I will go a little bit onto the panel because it is exciting to see, as Bernard said, and I recognize them to be in 3 parts, just like the theme. I see members who are coming here from academia. I still see practitioners. And then you see also development partners. I know most of the people coming here. And together, you're going to have no less than 150 years of experience sitting right up here. I'm not sure we can assemble such a very clean, good panel. I'm sure they will do very good justice to the 2026 budget with regards to the fiscal discipline, allocative efficiency, and operational efficiency of the budget. And then for the moderator, I don't know where he is. Where is Bernard? Right at the back there. I've admired this gentleman for so many years. And I'm happy we went to the same university and did the same course. So his level of interrogation is deep, is wide, and I know that he will bring the best out of the panelists that we're going to have here. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome from the Ministry of Finance, a heartful feeling from the Finance Minister, and we wish you a very wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ackhurst. Always a pleasure listening to you. So even though we went to the same university, you went there many years before I did. And you clearly took your lessons more seriously than I did, which is why you are there and I'm here. So the moral of the story, if you're studying economics, study it well. Otherwise, you'll be asking questions and those who studied hard will be answering it. No offense taken at all. We'd like to acknowledge a few people here. This program is the first, as rightly said. I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Ishmael Dodu, who is the Director of Innovative Finance at 24-Hour Economy Secretariat. Let's put hands together for him. Thank you, sir. We are very pleased to have Lord Paul Boateng, a member of the House of Lords UK. He likes to remind us he went to Accra Academy, which is the second best school in the Greater Accra region. It's fine. Take it like that. You can't do anything to me. Even though you are a lord, I'm in Ghana, you can't do anything. I've seen a few other important people. I've seen Dr. Alter, who is the IMF country resident rep. Dr. Alter, thank you for being here. A few more people I've seen. I'll get the right designations so I don't run into any error. Before we hear from the GRA director, I'd like to take a few comments from Dr. Dodu. I think by the way, the pre-budget survey, there's a lot of interest in 24-hour economy. A lot of people want to know what's happening to you. So I'm going to give you just 4 minutes to pass a few quick thoughts around your perspectives on the budget and what you're expecting in today's program. So let's welcome Dr. Ishmael Dodu for a quick round of comments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Bernard, and good morning. I'll share a few reflections. I feel very intimidated. Please give me a smile, I beg you. And I see Right Honorable Paul Boateng, who I've admired since I was a child. I went to Accra Academy, and he was an inspiration. Please, let's put our hands together for him. So a few reflections. And I know that the 24-hour economy is really something that rode through the hearts of the government. And since we launched in July 3rd, there have been a lot of conversations. Primarily, the conversations we've had have been really at the level where we should be. We've been talking to industry, we've been talking to SMEs, smallholders, farmers, Makola women, traders associations, academia, development partners, a wide range of partners that really are concerned with the economy that we're trying to construct. And so it's so refreshing that the budget came. And one of I have 4 points, which is really a critical reflection from our heart, and I'd say the heart of the team of the 24-hour economy. And the first one is that the budget seeks to actually put our money where our mouth is, because the 24-hour economy is really the anchor of the budget. The spirit and the essence and the letter of the budget actually truly reflects the vision that we have of the 24-hour economy, which is an economy that is catalyzed for industrialization, export promotion, and job creation. An economy that makes Ghana a very, very robust one, resilient one, that looked at all the factors of production and optimizes it so that we become highly productive to be able to produce the large variety of products possible that could come from Ghana. The made in Ghana products should be so variety in its essence to the extent that if you take cassava, you can have 10 different products out of it, and all of which finding expression not just in Ghana market, in regional market, and international market. And therefore, because of the demand, we will definitely be able to do a round-the-clock economy and run shapes. The other point is the budget seeks to mobilize the private sector in a very, very revolutionary way by providing the incentives to de-risk the investments. If you look at the Grow 24 program that we do have, the investment in the farmer service centers, the investment in the minimal equipment that farmers need to have, the investment in some of the bulk infrastructure, irrigation facilities, so that smallholders will be able to be properly transformed to produce the massive raw materials that industry then needs to take and add value to. And I think this de-risking environment is very clever in the way the budget actually positioned it. The third one is the budget sought to invest in its environmental, social, economic, and development spheres of our economy. So if you deconstruct our economy in really dealing with the structural deformities that our economy have, the budget seems to target investment in a social aspect, in economic aspects, in a development aspect, and environmental aspect, through the green transition approaches, and through the strategic investment in women economic empowerment, targeting Women Bank, for example, and then addressing the issue of inclusivity, no one leave behind aspect, and then positioning the entire economic transformation in a green transition mode. I think this is very, very clever as well. And that opens a lot of opportunities for all types of finance, green bonds, green financing, climate action, carbon credit, and stimulating all types of entrepreneurs' development. So I think that is one thing that is very critical. The fourth aspect is that the budget provides the 24 economic sector the tools to do what we want to do, to build our institution, to mobilize the private sector, to simulate specific financial engineering, to create cheap, patient capital for the SMEs. It enables us to be able to today anchor our SME facility with $500 million that we have been able to negotiate with BIDEA, giving us the incentives to be able to fulfill that conditions for that, and then being able to talk to other sources that help us to create the needed financial capital that SMEs need to have. It also gives us the flexibility to be able to look at SMEs in different ways and accustom or contextualize our support to them so that they will be able to stimulate a type of growth. So the small enterprises will be dealt with in the way that will unleash their potential, the medium enterprises and so on. And be able to work with the AGI in bringing in protocols that would demonstrate that the SMEs actually drive development through impact. And this morning I was having that conversation with the AGI director. So I think the budget really has set the pace for all of us. And it is only saying to us that there's a clarion call for us to just capitalize on this gain and be able to leverage it and grow. So this, I'm very interested in seeing how the panels actually choreograph these aspects that I've talked about. And in choreographing, and I want the panel to be able to end up singing a song that says that Ghana is powerful, is robust, is resilient, and is set to fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dodu, for those 4 bullet points summarizing the perspectives of the 24-hour plus for the budget. This is the KPMG Post-Budget Forum, the first for 2026 budget. And we're happy to say this is the only organization that has done a pre-budget survey and has found a way of synchronizing that with the budget itself. We're live on Channel One television. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, you can put those questions on the number on the television screen. I'd like to acknowledge a few more people. Engineer Ken Ashigbe is here with us. I've forgotten your new role now. Chamber of Mines. Chamber of Mines. I think you're the chief executive. Let's put hands together for Engineer Ken Ashigbe. He was initially Chamber of Telecoms. So it's like we are doing more chambers. We're a chamber man. Amazing stuff. Of course, we have the GRA Commissioner General Anthony Sapon here with us. Let's acknowledge him. Round of applause. Also happy to have the Chief Executive of Telecel, Patricia Obunai. Thank you very much. We have a man who looks like the Dutch ambassador to Ghana. I'm not sure whether you're the same person or are you the president? EU ambassador. You are new in Ghana. You haven't spent more than 3 months. So yeah, EU ambassador. Let's acknowledge him. Round of applause. Thank you very much. You know, if they had told me that I was to call Lord Boateng, I wouldn't have said the thing I said about his school being the second best. They didn't tell me. Now that I've finished committing the blunder, I'm supposed to invite him to come and speak. So please find it in your heart to forgive me. As I welcome Lord Paul Boateng to bring us a few quick remarks. Please put your hands together for Lord Boateng. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed, MC. I certainly forgive you your blunder. Accra is not only the best school in the region, it's the best school in Africa. So let's be clear about that. But, you know, I'm also an Arsenal supporter, so you must understand that where my loyalties lie. But, Excellency, sisters and brothers, managing partner, friends all, it's good to be with you here this morning, albeit for a few brief minutes. You know, in our Akan tradition, they don't ask you by way of introduction your title. They don't ask you your occupation, your former occupations. Lord Boateng, former Chief Secretary to the Treasury, High Commissioner to South Africa, all those things. They don't ask you any of those things. They don't even ask you who your mum and dad are. They simply ask you one question. You know what it is. Why are you here? And if you think about it by way of introduction, that's the best possible question to ask. And I'm here simply because I am attending a meeting of the Africa Center for Economic Transformation, founded by K.Y. Amoko, who many of you will remember from the UN Economic Commission for Africa, one of Ghana's foremost economists, and a great think tank doing great work on the continent. And I'm here also as a senior independent non-executive director of the Ghana International Bank, which is the oldest Pan-African bank in the City of London. I'm having a meeting in half an hour with their staff here in Accra. So that's why I'm here, but I am privileged to be with you at KPMG by their invitation from an old friend, Imos Ansa, who I've known since he was, 16, 17. My wife and I are great supporters of him and his family, and he told me you were meeting and asked me to come, so I said I'll be delighted to do so. And while I'm here, just to make a few remarks, not in any way to comment on the budget you have just had in Ghana, and certainly not to comment on the budget we are going to have in a few days' time in the United Kingdom. I have learnt as a former Chief Secretary to the Treasury that it's best not to comment on the activities of the finance ministers who have followed you. So I won't be saying anything about that. But I do want to make one or two remarks about the challenges that we face globally today in terms of the global economy. These are challenging times, in many ways unprecedented times. The tectonic plates of the international financial system, of the international trading system are changing. things are not going to be the same again. And we delude ourselves if we believe that there is going to be any return to what was. There's no going back. The world is going to continue to be an uncertain place, a dangerous place in many ways, but also and importantly, at a time in which there is policy uncertainty globally, that there's no doubt about that, at a time in which there is increased trade tension, no doubt about that either, and real risks, not least from persistent inflation and subdued foreign direct investment. Those two risks are here and have to be managed. But they are also, and importantly, in my view, real opportunities. The threats that I have outlined to developing economies are real, but they are also opportunities for developing economies. And for Africa, the most important opportunity is to wean ourselves off this debilitating dependency on overseas aid. We really have got to do that. I am old enough, and by the look of it, one of the oldest people in this room. You are celebrating the 60th anniversary of the CD. I remember going with my father to the launch of the CD. I was present as a small boy opposite the military hospital, waving a flag when Kwame Nkrumah and Princess Marina passed by in order to go and to make the Declaration of Independence. So I've been around. And I remember a time in which the GDP of the Gold Coast, Ghana, was greater than the GDP of Malaysia. So, and you know where we are now. So that would suggest that we really have got to rethink our economic model. And we have got to foster increasing self-reliance. We have got also to recognize the importance of reform, the reform of infrastructure, and a focus on infrastructural development. The importance of developing our human capital, not least of our youth, and of enhancing the capacity and quality of our institutions. That's an absolute imperative. And in doing that, we have to draw upon the skills that exist in Ghana, the real skills, the skills that exist in Africa and the wider diaspora. And we have also to recognize that, the WTO is going through a period of real crisis. And that's not going to change anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be building in Africa on our own potential to develop our own initiative around the Africa Free Trade Area. It's absolutely central. Rather than wringing our hands about international and global trade, we need to look at continental trade and what we can do in order to bring down the barriers to trade within Africa and to improve intra-African trade. And for me, that means going beyond rhetoric to reality. It means policy reform so that the experience, there was reference earlier on to the Marcola market woman. I judge the success of the intra-African free trade area on what is the experience of that woman who is carrying produce on her head, who is carrying produce on her back, who is in the vehicle bringing her goods to market from one country to the other. What is her experience when she crosses a border? What's her experience when she crosses the border between Ghana and Togo, between Ghana and Abidjan? How is she treated? Is she harassed? Is she subject to corruption? Is she and her supply chain subject to tariffs that don't actually have any justification? So it's all about implementation. We have got the plans in Africa. The plans are there. They're in a very high quality. The question is implementation. That is the challenge. And you know, I will just say this, that you know, when it comes to implementation, we have got to recognize the importance of actually going beyond rhetoric. You know, when I was at school, we talked a lot about, too much rhetorics. Our headmaster, Kunwa, used to say, don't forget the school motto, esse quam videre, to be rather than to seem to be. We've actually got to live our solutions. It means that the private sector, and I salute KPMG for the work they're doing in that, the private sector and the public sector have to be able to work effectively together. We have to tackle these issues of procurement. We've got to remove the obstacles to doing business. We've got to unlock the natural enterprise that exists within our people. And the role of government, whether in the UK or in Ghana, the role of government is to be an enabler. Government can't do everything. What government can do is to create an enabling environment. So I wish the government of Ghana, I wish my government in the UK well as they wrestle with the challenges of these times. But you know, the answer ultimately lies not in governments. The answer lies in people, lies in you all, lies in your businesses, your sense of enterprise, your sense too of collective responsibility for nation building. And that applies whether we are in Ghana or in the UK. And the one final thing I will say to you, as I said when I addressed the Africa Caucus of the IMF and the World Bank in Abuja last year, is that we need to put the youth and the youth demographic at the center of our policy making. Because Ghana's youth, Africa's youth, are the future. The future not only for Africa, and don't forget we have the fastest growing youth population in the world. We are the youngest continent as well as the oldest continent. The oldest continent geologically, the youngest continent in terms of demographic. We have to put them at the heart of our policy making. And that means making sure that we don't just build their capacity, but that we provide them with employment and we encourage and support their own efforts for employment going forward. And that older men and women are prepared to make way for younger men and women and to join with them across the generations in delivering on the dream that our foremothers and our forefathers had for this continent. And that means opening ourselves up to the possibilities of AI. It means recognizing the importance of blockchain technology. I do hope that features in the course of your deliberations today, because that's the future. And sometimes we as older men and women wrestle with that. But believe you me, AI and blockchain are going to change our world. And Africa has to be at the heart and at the forefront of that. So I wish you well. I thank you for all you are doing. There was a phrase that I learnt when I was British High Commissioner to South Africa. I learnt it from the Zulu and the Xhosa people. And it's a simple word, but it means everything. And that word is vikuzenzele. Vikuzenzele. If there are any South Africans in the room, they will recognize that word. But you know what it means? It means this: get up, get out there, and just do it. Get up, get out there, and just do it. Vikuzenzele. Thank you very much.
Wow. Get up, get out, and get it done. That was the Venerable Lord Paul Boateng. A round of applause for him one more time. Wow. This is the UNDP KPMG Post-Budget Forum on the theme Resetting for Growth, Jobs and Economic Transformation. We've just been inspired by a man who was there and who's still here with so many fascinating talking points. Great time of flux, but great opportunity. He also mentions the need to focus away just from plans into implementation. And this is what we're doing here today as well. And I want to assure him, we'll definitely talk about blockchain technology, AI, and the rest of those newfangled ideas. We'd like to have our final speech. Then we do the panel discussion. I'd like to acknowledge before we do that a few more people. So from the World Bank, we have Juan Mendelez and his team from the World Bank. Where's Juan Mendelez? Yes, sir. Thank you. Kwabena Jan Kwachi is from that team as well. Kwabena, good to have you. Put your hands together for them. And we're also very happy to have the head of the delegation of EU, Rune Skinnebach. That's the name, right? Thank you, sir, for being here. The team lead from the EU is Timothy Dolan. Timothy Dolan. Thank you, Timothy, for being here as well. And from the NDPC, the chief analyst, Michael Kusi Apia from NDPC. Where is he? Give us a wave. Thank you very much indeed. We'd like to now bring up a man we know very well in this room who's now taking the very important job of Commissioner General, GRA. Let's welcome Anthony Sapong to bring some quick remarks as the guest speaker, actually. Guest speaker, Anthony Sapong. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I think let me stand on the existing protocol so that we can save some time. And as we talk about technology, I decided that I will not come here with my the usual files you see as in those of us in public sector. So, Arcus, who presented the minister, thank you very much. I didn't bring a file, so I'm following your lead. Yes. Let me also thank KPMG and UNDP for organizing this forum and giving us the opportunity to discuss the 2026 budget. It's important that these engagements are made so that the message is carried through all of us, so that we can all get up, go out there, and just do it. Yes. So you notice that the budget is anchored on the theme Resetting for Growth, Jobs, and Economic Transformation. And this is actually a lever of His Excellency, the President's vision of overall resetting the nation. And therefore, within this context, you will notice that the budget outlines a number of measures that will influence revenue mobilization, that will drive investment in various infrastructure, that will propel growth, lead to job creation, and also there are certain key areas that are also covering social protection. Those are very, very fundamental key pillars that you see in the budget. And because the minister's rep has already spoken about some of these areas, and being a taxman, let me first focus on some of the key areas relating to taxation. And then towards the end, I'll bring all the other elements together. So first, in terms of the area of revenue mobilization, and Honorable Boatin just mentioned that it is about time we just do it and we in ourselves mobilize from within. So domestic revenue mobilization, if we are going to get out there and do all the nice initiatives that have been cataloged in the budget, is going to anchor on making sure that we drive growth and improvement in our domestic revenue mobilization. And that anchors the very transformation that we are looking for. Without the revenue, we will not be able to build our schools, we will not be able to build hospitals, and will not be able to provide all the essential social services. And that's where, from where I stand, I come in within the bigger umbrella of revenue mobilization. GRA's mandate is actually the tax component, which is also actually a significant component of domestic revenue mobilization. So you will see that in this particular budget, and also in the 2025 budget, government policy has been very deliberate to take steps to use tax policy to create the environment for business to grow, reduce costs, and create the opportunities. So I'll take a moment to explain some of these reforms which have been announced by the minister as far as tax revenue is concerned. So the first is the major reforms that has been announced respect to VAT. So VAT, as we all know, is a consumption tax. And the more we consume, the more we pay, the more we generate revenue. So today, if you look at Ghana's population, we are at a point where we are consuming. And as we continue to join God to procreate, we expect that the population will grow. And therefore, if the population is going to grow, we are going to eat more food, we are going to drink more, we are going to use more cars. So consumption is set to grow. And therefore, VAT, from our perspective, is a major tax type that we need to make sure that it's working and it's working for us. And if it works and actually get the way that we want, it will generate actually the needed domestic revenue that we are looking for. So part of the reforms is both structural, process, and technology-driven. So the first thing that government has proposed is, one, to lift the threshold of VAT registration from 200,000 to 750,000 Ghana cedis in respect of goods. So this actually takes away the burden of small, micro, and individual enterprises that actually struggle to be able to keep their books as far as VAT is concerned. So we are lifting this away and say, focus on your business, deliver selling. When you go above the threshold, we'll come and collect our taxes. But until you get there, just focus on your business and do. So this is a big relief. We believe that is going to support our micro enterprises to be able to focus on their businesses and do what they do best. So you have these businesses employing 5, 10, 15 people. This is about ensuring that they are focusing to grow. They are focusing on job creation. The second one is the elimination of the cascading effect. So today, the VAT that we have, you will notice that we have the levies, which is 1% COVID levy. You have the 2.5% GET fund. You have 2.5% National Health Insurance levy. Now, before you charge the VAT of 15%, you apply or you charge the VAT of 50% on these levies. So which means that you are paying tax on levies that you are paying to government. The implication is that it is a cost to business. But the worst of it was that the 6%, which was the COVID levy and the GET fund and NHIS, were not deductible. So we were actually adding 6% costs to businesses. Government policy, we are saying we are going away from that. So no cascading. Number two, you can claim the full benefit as input tax, NHIS, and the GET fund. And the next one is COVID is gone forever. So this is actually liberating the space for businesses. Your cost is going to go down. The 6% cost will go off, and therefore it allows profit to rise, all things being equal. And then, of course, overall, when you look at all of this together, the effective rate today of 21.9% reduces to what? 20%. So again, some people have said this is too small, but I challenge them. And I say that it's not too small. It's the beginning of a good work. So that 2%, which previously you can't use for consumption, is going to go back into people's pocket and wallets. And that will flow through consumption, and that will generate the expansion that we need in businesses, that will generate the expansion that we need in taxes. So please, we have reduced it, so spend more, consume more, businesses will grow, and we'll get more taxes. Yes. And then, of course, that's my the area for my brother. We've been struggling with it in terms of the VAT on exploration. We are talking about people coming to invest in the area of minerals and other extractive industries. And the key challenge has always been there's a VAT when you have to explore to find the minerals. In this reform, the VAT for exploration has been affirmed. That is no longer going to be there. So again, it's the government way of saying, bring in the investment, come and explore, find the minerals, and let's grow and explore together. Because when these are turned into reality, they of course will create the jobs that we are looking for. So in all, you notice that we're using the VAT as a key driver, the reforms, to actually create space for businesses to grow, creates opportunities to have jobs, and also as a way of transforming, because once the VAT is reformed and we generate more money, government can spend on the infrastructure projects that are outlined in the budget. Of course, the minister also talked about the fact that we are not going to stop at VAT. So in the course of 2026, we're also going to look at major reforms on the Revenue Administration and the Customs Act. Because if you look at our three areas of taxation in Ghana, it's VAT, it's customs, and income taxes. So 2026, we've started with the major reforms on the VAT, which we're working on with Parliament. We believe that if things goes well, Parliament will approve this. If they approve this before they rise for Christmas, then we are set to actually implement from January. And in the course of 2026, the minister will then again, under his leadership, will work on the other tax laws, which is the income tax and customs, so that in totality, we are looking at the overall reforms of the tax policies to enhance business growth and create jobs. But for 2026, again, we're looking at partially in terms of the process of the customs area. One of the major challenges we have in this country is what we call the classification and valuation of custom goods. I think the importers here, the agents here, and those who work in the border areas, you understand these terms very, very well. So classification deals with if somebody is bringing rice, are they bringing full pieces of rice or broken rice? And sometimes they are full pieces of rice and they will describe it as broken rice. If it's broken rice, you pay a lower duty, of course. So these are the issues with classification. And then it then moves into valuation. So depending upon the classification, it drives valuation. But the other components that we also don't see is country of origin. Depending upon where the goods are coming from, you get duty differential. But the worst of it, or which I also speak about, is tampering with manifest. When a ship has sailed and says, I'm carrying a 40-footer container of rice, it gets to Ghana, and somehow on the high seas is Jameson powder, which customs is seeing. So this is one area we want to revolutionize with AI. So we are going to introduce an AI automation That will mimic the very work of assessing, classification, and evaluation by our officers. So let me assure my officers, the human beings are not going to go away. They are not going to go anywhere. But the AI is going to work side by side with the human beings. The beauty is that the AI will determine the duty of the product in less than 10 minutes by the time you feed it with the data. And today it takes about 30 to 1 hour for my officers to do that. So before my officers come out with the result, the AI results is standing there and waiting. And we are just checking. We've done the proof of concept of this AI. It's promising. The samples that we did showed an upside of duty values by 40 to 45%. Clap, I think. So when this works, it means that our revenue from customs is just going to go up. It will increase domestic revenue mobilization, but not so. It also gives government opportunity to rationalize. Because today the importers are saying it's too high. But if all of us are paying correctly, and there's parity, let me quote the Gutta president, that is his word, parity, if he's listening. Joseph, Dr. Joseph, I'm quoting you here. So there's parity, it affords government to rationalize, and as we go forward, bring down some of the costs at the import. So it's not just about focusing on increasing the revenue, but also going to drive changes and reforms in the customs area. Then, of course, the minister also talked about the fact that there's an abuse of the import declaration form. That's also customs area. So we did a 5-year study, and we realized that within the 5-year study, over 45 billion USD has been moved out of the country. And when you go into it, not more than about 7 billion were genuinely connected with trade. So what happened to the rest of the money? So people go in, fill IDF forms, which shows intent to import. And therefore, they take it to the bank. The bank will transfer money as an advance for the import. The goods do not come back. The monies do not come back. So we are going to, again, invest in another technology called advanced cargo information, which is blockchain embedded. So if you apply for IDF, or the goods are coming, the blockchain will tide it. In 3 months, we'll share the information with the banking system. So we'll be able to tell whether when you send the money out, the goods came or not. And we'll definitely will come after those that are wanting in that area. So these two areas, we believe that the technologies we are going to employ will actually, one, help us to improve revenue, help us to rationalize the duties, and most importantly, ensure that genuine transfers that go out of this country are the genuine ones. So you notice that as a prelude to that, 2 major initiatives have already been introduced, which is announced by the Central Bank of Ghana before this budget. One, so when you are traveling and you are carrying up to 10,000 USD equivalent freely, you don't need to tell anybody. If you are carrying more than between 10,000 and 50,000, you are required to declare it. You don't need to tell us where you got it, but you are required to declare it or to state that you are carrying above 10,000 up to 50,000. If it is above 50,000, you are required to declare it and state the source and the purpose why you are carrying above 50,000, why you're going to use it for. Otherwise, channel it through the banking system. And we are introducing, again, technology at the point. So don't think that you are just going to say, I'm carrying, I'm not carrying. The scanners are coming. So currencies you are carrying to show, the scanners are going to tell us. So it's not that you are going to talk to the custom officers and say that I'm carrying 10,000 when you are carrying over 50. The scanners will show the evidence. So it's important that we understand these things. And these measures, again, will help us to tame the flow of Forex and allow the normal systems to run. And then, of course, the other one, which has been introduced in conjunction with other securities agencies, the multi-command center at the airport. So today, we have all the manifests of everybody traveling. So when you are going in and when you are coming out. So when the customs officers stop you, it's not random. You have risk profile you. You know the number of bags you took away. You know the number of bags you are coming with. So that will tell us, okay, you went with 1 bag, you are coming with 10 bags. Are you carrying dutiable goods or not? Did you carry more than money that you didn't declare? So that is at the moment working. So if you buy your ticket 24 hours before you fly, we get to know. And when you are coming and you check in online, we get to know you are going to fly. And we know the bags that are. So this is open, don't be afraid. So it's working right at the airport. So we are using these AI tools and technology as data point and insight to drive revenue mobilization and to manage government policy. So it's important that these things have taken place and they are working. But also importantly in the VAT area, since 2028, we have what we call the Fiscal Electronic Devices Act. So it's supposed to be the technology arm to help us implement VAT. Unfortunately, we've not done it. 2026, we are going to get up, go out there, and just do it. So the third implementation is on its way. We've already done some work on it. By Q1 of 2026, the selection process would have taken place and want to go live by Q2 of 2026. So all retailers, you are going to sell through a Fed technology. So those of you who travel to Dubai, you get to the shop, and whatever you are buying, you buy through the IPOS or the Fed. That's how it happens. And when you are coming back to Ghana and you want to claim your VAT, you get to the airport, you show your passport, and all your purchases are there. So this is the way we are going. So that once you purchase, GRA knows what you have purchased, the shops. So at the end of the month, you are not coming to tell us you didn't make any sales. We will know. And then we'll do. The second phase is really to intervene. So as soon as the consumer pays, you take your money, GRA takes its VAT. So this is the way we are going with technology. We are also at the moment piloting what we call a digital economy tool, because online businesses are growing. And we have businesses outside the country who are selling a lot into this country, but you don't get the benefit of the VAT. So today we are working with Bank of Ghana and the financial intermediation, and we are piloting a tool. So at the point of payment, so let's say you order something on Amazon. At the point of payment, that technology will intervene, take the taxes that is due to Ghana, and allow the money that is due to Amazon to go. So again, this is revolutionary, and all of these measures are going to help us improve. So you see that government action is really not to introduce new taxes. Government action is to create efficiencies in the way we employ the existing taxes. And that way, we believe that we can generate a lot of revenue to support the agenda of government. And the last one before I move on, it's important for me to mention as I stand here, is a modified taxation scheme. So a number of times we have said that the informal sector is huge in Ghana, but contribution to tax is low. So we have introduced what we launched it about 2 weeks ago, the modified taxation scheme. If your income is not above $500,000, you qualify to be in this scheme for individuals and sole proprietor businesses. You pay a flat rate of 3%, and that's all the income tax you pay. So let's take, for example, if you are earning 25,000 Ghana cedis the whole year, then all the tax you pay is 750. Is this not affordable? Can't Ghanaians do this? If you are earning 25 and your contribution to national development is 750 Ghana cedis, this is something that we should all jump up to and do it. If you are earning 200,000, all you pay is 6,000 Ghana cedis. 6,000 Ghana cedis. So let me appeal to all our informal sector operators, artisans, the creatives, and everybody who is doing business out there. This is the tax for you. This is an opportunity to contribute to national development. Earn $500,000 or below, pay 3%, and that's all that we are asking from you. And we've also made it simpler. You register through an app, so you don't need to move from where you are. On your smartphone, you register. On your smartphone, you can pay with Momo, through bank account, any other channel. and immediately also get your receipt. If you are going any place, they ask for your tax clearance certificates on the same app, you can show it. So for our informal sector, this is the tax for you to contribute to national development. So we'll be doing more education on it and want to encourage all of you to support us to make sure, because our estimate is that if this works, within the next 3 years, we should be generating about 40 billion Ghana cedis through the modified taxation scheme alone. And that is significant for revenue mobilization. So having talked a lot more about taxation, let me just reference back in terms of within the overall context. So you see that within the budget, in terms of preparedness to grow and to transform, and as Director Ake said, government has prioritized key major infrastructure projects. And we believe that all of us, those in government, in private sector, we must work together to make sure that we implement and it happens. The investment in the power plant is transformation. The Accra-Kumasi Expressway is transformational. The investment in oil palm, transformational. If the oil palm succeeds, we are significantly diversifying forex sources. We are not only going to depend on gold, cocoa, and other non-traditional, but palm is going to be a variation. And you know how the world works. Commodity prices can change all the time. Today, we are enjoying all the high rising in gold. Tomorrow, gold goes down. Cocoa and palm should be able to stand for us. So this is visionary under the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, and anchored by the hard-working Ato Forcing, who is actually forcing. But all of these are going to be possible if you pay that your 750 Ghana cedis on your 25 income, or you pay your 6,000 on your 200 income, because we need money to finance this project. They are not just visionary, they will lead to growth. So if you have stable power, if you create the opportunities in oil, palm, and expressway, they lead to businesses and growth. And of course, once they are growing, jobs will be created, incomes will be uplifted, and totality of it all will lead to transformation. So ladies and gentlemen, let me now try to read what is before me. So the private sector, of course, will continue to remain an engine of growth, and GRA will continue to strengthen partnership with businesses, tax professionals, and civil society. We want to be collecting the tax smiling. So voluntary compliance is the way to go. So for us as GRA, within the context of growth, job creation, and transformation, we are targeting 2026 as a year of compliance. Let us voluntarily comply so that we can build Ghana together. As I am saying, not to shock you, in conclusion, a modern revenue system must be fair and trusted. GR is committed to transparent enforcement, predictable processes, and respect the taxpayer. The expected operationalization of the Independent Tax Appeal Board, which I didn't mention. So the Independent Tax Appeals Board has been on a drawing board for 5 years. I'm happy to announce that under the leadership of the Minister of Finance, working with GRA, the regulations for Independent Appeals Board has been passed. So today, if you have dispute with GRA, all of us need not go and wait at the court for 3, 4, 5 years. Government is not getting the money. You are not getting your tax matter resolved. And if you are not lucky and the judge gives the ruling to GRA, the interest is waiting. We will collect it. So Independent Appeals Board regulations has been passed, and we're working with them to operationalize it. So again, we are investing in the staff development, ethics, and digital skills to ensure that GRA, as we relate with the business community, we reflect the sense of professionalism and integrity. The 2026 national budget represents a pivotal moment in Ghana's economic journey. It challenges us to reset growth, to reset jobs, and to reset for transformation. So we stand ready to support this agenda as GRA with discipline, with innovation, and investment in our people, and investment in the right technologies. As citizens or a taxpayer, and I just want to emphasize it, your duty, 1, is to know the taxes you must pay, 2, dutifully pay the taxes, and 3, let us build Ghana together. Let's move forward, let's strengthen our systems, uphold fairness, and build an economy that offers opportunity for every Ghanaian and resident. May God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow. Anthony Sapong is the acting, can you applaud him one more time? Commissioner General. When you move from private sector to public sector, the two things happen to you. Your beard becomes white. And then you leave your speech and give many remarks because the work is very hard. So we will be praying for you so you will succeed. In Jesus' name, did I hear an amen? Amen. I hope the program is going well. The speeches are many, but we're done with the speeches. So we're going to go into two things. If you've just tuned in, this is the KPMG UNDP post-budget forum on the theme Resetting for Growth, Jobs, and Economic Transformation. We're live on ChannelOne television, bringing you the first post-budget of the year. Let's put hands together for KPMG and UNDP. It's a very important partnership because usually budgets are very hard. And I think UNDP softens the budget and translates it into usable development frameworks. Let's applaud UNDP. Powerful. Now, because people tune in at different times and because we are from different areas, we're going to do a few quick slides to bring us all on the same page. As we've said, there's a pre-budget survey that is done which essentially asks questions of key business leaders in relation to the previous budget to glean their perceptions and then their preferences for the budget to come. So we'll be showing you some quick highlights of that, and then we'll tie that into the 4 big slides for the 2026 budget. And then we've woven that into 5 thematic areas for the panel so that we'll be on the same page. So what are we saying? How am I supposed to point this? Okay, wonderful. So basically, over 200 entities were featured in the pre-budget survey. The breakdown of the sectors mirrors the strength of these sectors for the economy as well. So 46% agric, 29% is industry, 23% services. And as I said, perceptions of the 2025 budget, how did they see it? How did they find it? And then what they want the government to prioritize for the budget that was just read. So this was obviously done before November 13. This is very important indeed. Now, the perceptions for the 2025 budget are grouped under 3 main rubrics. Effectiveness, impact, and implementation is the first subheading. Tax policy and compliance experience is the next one. And the National Development, ESD, and SDG alignment. Very important. If you don't know what the SDGs are, they are here. So 17 very critical goals we've all agreed on globally to be the means of measuring our progress as a people. And the UNDP is the custodian of that in this context. Now, you notice on the right side, we have 5 key priorities for the 2026 budget. But there's a way in which the two flow into each other. So, for example, under the first rubric of effectiveness, awareness, and implementation, impact, we have, for example, people said the 2025 budget was moderate overall. 44% agreed that the budget effectively addresses Ghana's key economic challenges. Respondents identified infrastructure development, tax reform, education, policies, energy, and agric as impactful policy areas. This is 2025 budget. And people had moderate confidence in the budget's ability to drive sustained growth. It's one of the themes we'll look at because there's always a trade-off between stability and growth. It's almost one of the everlasting questions you have when budgets are read. About 62% said they had some level of confidence that that budget was going to deliver growth. Under the tax policy and compliance rubric, you notice we are very big on tax. Mr. Sapong is from the Revenue Authority because the point about a budget is you want to spend money, but you need to raise the money. And you don't want to go and be borrowing at exorbitant rates. So it's about how well people pay taxes. So tax is always a big issue. Only 30% of respondents agree that Ghana's tax policies strike the right balance between revenue generation and business competitiveness. Again, it's a sort of tension, right? You want to raise revenue so you can build roads. But if you take all my working capital as your tax, I'm not going to employ anybody. So there's always a need for a balance, which is why when you have a Ministry of Finance full of tax people, it's a problem. You always need a good balance between real sector people. So Anthony Sapo and his kind, they come and balance things with the economists who also think about growth and jobs. So in that budget, a number of people said they didn't really think that the budget struck the right balance between the two. And of course, because there are changes in tax policy, it also affected perceptions about predictability and fairness. This is 2025, by the way. We haven't got 2026 yet. About half of the respondents described the financial impact of the recent tax measures, again, that was the 2025 budget, as neutral, with about a third viewing them positively. And of course, digital tax initiatives were well received. Last point there, national development, ESG, and then SDG alignment. What are some of the issues? Generally, cautiously positive is the alignment, right? Education, industry, and infrastructure, decent work and economic growth, poverty reduction were identified as the SDGs receiving the most attention. What are the key priorities these respondents gave for the budget that was just read? Again, think about this as what was done before Atu read the budget. So was he listening? By the way, he was also in the market, talking to people in the markets in the Western and Central region. People wanted his budget to expand access to affordable long-term finance. We'll come back to that theme in the discussion. They wanted the budget to ensure reliable, affordable energy and the supportive infrastructure for energy. Again, a big theme we'll be discussing. People wanted tax reform and simplicity. It's a big thing in the conversation ahead. They also were hoping the budget to strengthen SME, skills development, and local industry support. And the fifth area was deepening private sector participation in SDGs and climate goals. So what the team has done is to condense these five into three broad policy initiatives that they proposed. Again, this was discussed, at least in some media, before the budget was read. So again, it tells you the prescience of the work and also the solidity of the research, that what people are saying essentially influenced what the finance minister put in his budget. So this was done before the budget was read. And it was surprising to know that some of the points here are actually dealt with in the budget. So for example, we condensed those five into three. So deepening access to affordable finance was a key priority for this budget. Building a predictable and competitive business environment was a key priority as well. And then accelerating climate-smart industrialization and 24-hour. Dr. Dodu just stepped out. Now, let's give a few policy initiatives the team gleaned from those remarks, from those responses. So they wanted, for example, the budget to scale up credit guarantee and risk-sharing schemes to encourage banks to lend to SMEs and priority sectors. Because the big issue, rates are coming down, private sector doesn't get the quality of capital it requires. It's a big issue in Ghana. If you look at a lot of the banks, their books, government still dominates. Money is supposed to go to the private sector to employ people. They also wanted the operationalization of the Women's Development Bank. I think they listened. We were told 401 million has been put in there, correct? So again, this was before the budget was read. And they wanted youth entrepreneurship and inclusive policies to be prioritized as well. We also recommend an acceleration of the establishment of a domestic credit rating agency and improve credit transparency, risk assessment, and pricing for smaller businesses. We are not sure if this is there. The panel will help me if we get to that point. They also wanted simplicity of business registration. We recognize there's now ORC, separated from the Registrar General. How that is working, you will tell us. So these are some of the recommendations under affordable finance. Then under predictability of the tax environment, there were 4 recommendations: streamline levies and fees, including the COVID levy, and reducing all of those things. We know that VAT has come down 21.9 to 20, so it has been addressed. Very interesting recommendation, point 2 under the second rubric. Introduce a structured tax policy calendar, all right? Ensuring at least 1 fiscal year's notice. I'll let Mr. Dade comment on this. A very important recommendation, and I feel it requires some explanation. How is this going to give predictability? You can't change taxes. Even if the tax is bad, you need to think about when to change it so that people's plans will not be jettisoned. And then, of course, simplify tax filing and compliance. With GRA, you notice a lot of people are talking of simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. It runs through. And then strengthening dialogue mechanisms between the ministry, GRA, and business associations. This morning on my radio show, a guy from the FABAG sent a letter to you, which he also sent to us, that people are smuggling everywhere, rice and sugar, right? He has to put it on air because maybe he doesn't have access to you. We don't know. So the point is, there's a need for better dialogue, private sector, FABAG, GRA, and whatever the name is, AGI. All of those people need to be brought into the conversation. The final group of recommendations under the rubric of accelerating climate-smart industrialization and 24-hour plus economy. So, for example, I'm not sure if the budget is the one supposed to do this, right? They want to see a national implementation roadmap for 24-hour plus. I suspect that's not a budget function. Nonetheless, it's an important thing. It tells you there's interest in 24-hour. There isn't a lot of detail. All right? Facilitate the establishment of infrastructure credit guarantee institution to mobilize long-term CD financing for commercially viable projects. Very, very important discussion will be ensuing on long-term financing. In fact, one of the 5 key themes we've gleaned from these is theme 3, financing, investment, and long-term capital mobilization. So we'll discuss that during the panel. It's a very important point. The budget must answer the financing question. Expand renewable energy investments and off-grid solutions, possibly because they are also cheaper and cleaner. And our financial sector, the finance minister said, is threatened a lot by the energy sector. He said it on an interview with us. He said it in the budget as well. People also want you to promote PPP, reduce fiscal pressure, and crowding private investment, support TVET, and those nice things. So these are the 3 broad areas of recommendations the team put together. You can let me know if you think the budget listened. Right now, let's come to the budget itself. I'll just give you 3 slides, and we're done. So this is 2025 in a slide. Again, there are many things a budget does. What the team decided to do was to pick out what you call the top lines. All right, so what are the top lines? Because inflation has been such a big issue, we use inflation to start. Inflation 2022 at some point was close to 60% food inflation. So the target was the target was around 12% or 11, if I'm not mistaken. The outturn was 8%. So growth 6.3% was the outturn. I think the target was around 5. Was 5. 4. So they surpassed growth. They did better in inflation. As for the monetary policy rate, it came down from around 29-ish to 21. So beautiful numbers there. Import cover, 4.8 months. Fiscal deficit, this is on commitment, not on cash basis, 1.5. Surplus, correct, beautiful. Debt to GDP, down from 60-something to 45. These are beautiful numbers. Couple of key points to note. Fiscal developments, January to September. Revenue outturn was about 6 billion lower than the target. Target is 162.6. Outturn was 1.4 as of September. So a bit of an issue there. Expenditure, way below. All right? So that's where the fiscal tightness comes in. You plan to spend 207, you spend 175. All right? So basically, if you can't raise the revenue, you won't spend. All right? Real sector performance, 2 things are looking good, 1 thing not looking good. So the red line is agriculture, or the pink line is going up, trending up. That's good. This is the growth performance. White line is services, also trending up. The problem is the deep blue line. It's trending down. It's a talking point for the panel. Now, of course, the debt to GDP, we know there was a more focus on domestic borrowing. I think you did that in your presentation at the World Bank recently. We won't waste time on this. Next key issue, again, we are putting this out so that all of us are on the same page as to what we are coming to discuss. We can't assume you've read the budget. The budget speech the minister read was 89 pages. The document itself was 305 pages. So it's a very big document. So the team has done a great job by just teasing out these points. Targets, inflation, they want to maintain the 8. Again, we can comment on this. I'm a bit surprised growth rate target is 4.8, even though you'd surpassed your 4 and got 6.3 as of September. Why are you coming down to 4.8? You have already 4.8 months import cover. You are aiming for only 3. Again, we will ask questions about that. A few issues to look at in the 2026 targets. Look at expenditure in the top right corner. 302 billion, 0.5 on commitment basis. These are the plans. Revenue and grant, 268. So already you see a deficit, fiscal deficit of around 2.2% of GDP, again on commitment basis, not on cash basis. the team will explain, the head of budget will explain why it's important to differentiate between the commitment, because, for example, the budget deficit on on a fiscal basis, the fiscal balance is different from the primary balance. So he will explain that when he comes onto the panel, so we know what we're talking about. Revenue breakdown is given. Tax is still the biggest chunk, 223, followed by non-tax revenue. I think the Commissioner General spoke a lot about that already. And then basically the breakdown of where they are going to get their tax revenues from. Income and property still being the highest chunk, and cost of services being the next chunk. All right. Sectoral growth, 47% is coming from services, 31% from industry. Agric is 22%. Is this good or bad? For Professor, you will help us to appreciate this. I won't spend too much time on this because I think everybody has discussed this already. And Alex on the panel will talk about it. The VAT has been reviewed. COVID levy is gone. The decoupling has been abolished. All right. The threshold for VAT has also been improved so that the smaller the business is, they don't have the headache of having to file this complicated tax. The income tax will be reviewed as well. Tax relief for mining and textile. Where is Ashigbe? These are the 5 big issues with tax as per the budget. Let me move to the thematic areas for the panel. Am I done? All right, yeah, so these are the guys. Can you put your hands together for them? Solid people. Kwame Sapombane, head of advisory, and Diakoto, Mr. Banerjee, and Amprechum. Great job. I just came to read it. So if anything is wrong, it's not me. It's the people who wrote it to me. I just came to read it. It's not my work at all. All right, now, so what are the 5 thematic areas for the panel? Again, flowing from that, the first area is what we call policy alignment, delivery, and confidence, right? How aligned are the policies with our developmental objectives? We'll have a round of discussion on that. Second theme is tax policy and revenue mobilization. It's very big. We'll put up the tax slide again and delve into it. So theme 2 is tax policy and revenue mobilization. Theme 3, I hinted this already, financing, investment, and long-term capital mobilization. It's very, very important. You've been kicked out of the market in the past. Even if conditions are good, are you going to go back there? Where are you going to get your money from in a way that doesn't compromise the future? There are discussions around touching heritage fund and stabilization fund. Is that where you want to go? We'll discuss that. Theme number 4, competitiveness, energy, and create an enabling environment. It is the private sector that creates the jobs. They need to be competitive. Their products must sell at a competitive price to what is imported. You must deal with smuggling. Are your policies disadvantaging your local private sector? We'll discuss this. It's very important. AGI is here to help us do this. And then, yeah, I think there was a 5th theme, but I think it's been condensed into 4. So I'd like to bring up the panel now, and I'd like to start with Alex Dade. He's a tax partner, KPMG. Let's welcome Alex with a round of applause. Oh, I call you what? Alex. No, Gordon. Forgive me. It's been a long day. There's an Alex Dade somewhere. It's KGL. He does media. You don't do media, so we forgot. If you don't take care, we forget you. We call every day Alex. So it's Gordon. And I kept calling you Alex. And you were just looking at me. Forgive me. Tax partner, KPMG. It's good to have you. From UNDP, we have Dr. Eric Amprechum. Dr. Eric Amprechum, where is he? Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. We also have the Director of Budget, Ministry of Finance, Mr. Isaac Freku. Mr. Isaac Freku, Director of... So you sit at the extreme end. Extreme end, yes, please. And then I have Professor Priscilla Chumesi Bafo, who is a Associate Professor of Economics of the University of Ghana. That ASO Prof was confirmed over the weekend, and we are the first people who are giving her that name here. So when we do the program, she was a doctor, and by the time we printed the program, she was a professor. Hey, it's amazing. I want this miracle in my life. Powerful. Priscilla, it's good to see you. Last but not least, AGI, Mr. Eric Defo. Mr. Eric Defo, AGI, thank you. So not everything the previous government proposed was bad. There's something they did call one village, one dam, one district, one factory. So I've used that. So we have 4 themes. So 1 round, 1 question. This is what we learned from the previous government. 1 round. Is that a good idea? Or what you 1 round, 2 questions? Wonderful. All right. So gentlemen and lady, welcome to the program. I think the first thing to do, does everybody have a mic? Let me check. So let's say hello. Mr. Freku, good morning. Thank you for joining us. If you can say hello into your mic. There's an extra mic here for who doesn't have one. Mr. Freku, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Hello. Hello.
Good morning. Wonderful. Professor Priscilla, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Mr. Defo, good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Amprechu, good morning.
Good morning.
And Gordon.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, so I think the first thing to do before we get into the thematic areas is to ask an opening round of questions. What is your first impression of the overall direction Ghana is setting for the year ahead using the budget? First impression of the budget.
All right.
I'll start with Gordon. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard, and a warm welcome to all of you once again. So I believe that the budget is focused on consolidating the macros that we have gained within this year, and also projecting some growth prospects for the year. And as a tax consultant, I'm really looking at how government is going to implement the rafts of tax policies and also the tax reforms that particularly are in the VAT regime. So I look forward to how the GRA is going to work with the Ministry of Finance to swiftly implement these things to bring some ease to businesses and individuals as well.
Who's going next for first impressions? Yes.
Thank you very much. I see the budget focused on accelerating job creation and also strengthening services. And this we say mainly from our interest in the SDGs. And so for us, we see this as very key in the budget, and we're happy that this is the focus of this budget. Thank you.
Wonderful. Let's come to AGI. Mr. Defo, opening thoughts on the budget.
Thank you very much, and welcome to everybody at this forum. Well, we see the budget as a very positive one for industry, particularly because substantial provision has been made. Whether the revenues are generated to be able to spend is another matter, but we are hopeful that things will work out.
Amazing. Professor Chumesi Bafo.
Thank you, Bernard. I think that the direction of the budget is great. We have obtained macroeconomic stability on the back of a number of confounding factors. And so you see that the government is trying to ride on the stability to invest in addressing a number of the structural challenges we face that doesn't make the economy competitive to be able to create jobs and others, whilst also focusing on social protection, which is important for the vulnerable. So overall, it's a good direction that is taken.
Wonderful. The last person is I'm making you a judge in your own court because you're director of budget. So if I ask you what's your impression of the budget, of course, you say it was good. But since we are in a country of equality, let me allow you to answer it all the same.
Thank you. So I would say that this particular budget is very comprehensive. There's clarity on all the issues. You can easily refer to it and have most of your answers. And I will encourage everybody to take some time. There's a lot of information in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Put your hands together for them for the first round. Now, we're dealing now with the substantive round one, policy alignment, delivery, and confidence. And I'll start with Ministry of Finance on this one. So the budget reports a primary surplus of 1.6%, all right, and a sharp drop in debt to GDP. So clearly, fiscal discipline is being implemented. How do you sustain this fiscal discipline while at the same time pursuing ambitious programs like the big push, 30 billion, 24-hour-plus economy, without risking arrears or debt slippage? So that's your substantive question for the policy alignment round. So Mr. Freku, please take it up again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I would go from this direction. You know, we were in a cycle of, I call it the evil cycle. We were mobilized, we had to go into arrears because we had to find money to pay for commitments that we didn't have money for, or we didn't provide for them substantially. So this arrears issue, which has come to hurt us, brought a lot of consequential behaviors, let's say debt restructuring and some. It's just because some years ago we went into, over some time, we've gone into expenditures that we couldn't sustain with our revenues. Now, what happens when you go into this vicious cycle is that your commitments you are not able to pay, you are unable to pay contractors on time, it results in delayed payment, the banks are garnishing, courts are garnishing you because you owe one person, and the account you use to pay the next person is garnishing. So then it's a cycle you put yourself into. You can't service your debt on time because you're always borrowing. What you've gone into, you haven't got the finances to support it. So you have no option than to borrow. Until a time when you can't borrow, you are blacklisted, the credit ratings, people are on you. So if you're asking how we're able to balance the two, the new baby on the block is commitment control. And that's what the Honorable Minister has been spearheading. And that is what has really brought the change. Because commitment control, he didn't just put it on paper, he now turned a hitherto DEX into a full division and said that there's now a compliance division. Anytime you want to start committing government in any form, SOE, whoever you are, so long as you are dealing with public funds, please clear from the minister or let the Ministry of Finance know that we can sustain this type of new commitment that you are bringing on board. Already we had a backload of commitment that we hadn't discharged. So we're careful on bringing new commitments to add to our problem. So that is how come he started with it. Then he said that those who do not follow the principles, the PFM law. So he amended the PFM law and improved on the sanctions. If you read the PFM law, the amended one, it says that it has enhanced sanctions. Now, what are these sanctions? We are talking about prison sentences between 6 months and 5 years, including penalty units. So that also helped in one angle. Then he said, the arrears that we have is so huge. If we say we'll mix it to our yearly expenditures, it will give us problems. So I would harvest it and then hold to it and build and provide budgetary allocations to confront it step by step over the medium term. Now, all of you government agencies and MDAs, just don't deal with that one. I have taken over. Use your budgets in such a way that you don't end up adding arrears to my stock that I'm clearing. So first year, he made a provision for it, and he's paying. The arrears were audited before he started paying. So that one alone, and he has signaled strongly that don't bring any more new arrears. Watch it. The big push is budgeted for 30 billion. He has indicated, and I'm saying this budget, everybody must look at it. Everywhere he intends to do a new thing, he brings exactly how he intends to fund it. And it's not that he's guessing. We've already made contact with the people who will be financing it. We have some level of confidence and comfort. That's how come he's going that way. There's no activity in the budget that is not funded. So it's not that we are thinking that when we get there, no. He already has assurances. The 24-hour program, big intervention. That one is also, the 111 million or 10 million is not the funding for the 24-hour, no. It's just a facilitating amount. We are expecting some big private sector people we've made contact with.
Okay.
We are dealing with not only that, the Development Bank Ghana is helping. We are hoping to finance some from the GIF, Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, and other places. So anything in the document, wonderful. The financing is there. They take your arrears. I have beaten the biggest arrears. So the major thing is the fiscal discipline. Yeah. We anticipate that from now going, Ghanaians will watch it, especially public servants, watch the PFM law, watch the issues. Yeah. It's not worth it going into jail for...
We will come to a financing round so that you can comment in more detail around the issues of long-term financing. But I thank you for that answer. Let me come to Professor Chumesi Bafo.
Thank you.
When you see the budget in terms of its aspirations of maintaining stability, but also stimulating growth, people see a tension. Do you see enough policy prescriptions to make it a credible budget which aligns those two objectives, which can sometimes be in tension? So that's my question to you, Prof.
All right, thank you, Bernard. I think that, like you've rightly indicated, the macro stability is critical, and it hinges on the fiscal discipline we are seeing prior to this, and also the fact that when you look at our exports performance, basically you have two major commodities that are riding a lot of the stability we see, which is the strong performance of gold and also cocoa. And based on this, we also know that a lot of the indicators are not in our hands, and that is why a bit of a caution is important, because like it's stated in the budget, if you look at the funding sources for the big push, for example, a lot of it depends on mineral resources. There's an allocation from the ABFA, annual budget funds from petroleum resources. Petroleum performance, is going down in recent times. So there are a number of indicators that could not really work well in terms of when you look at specifically the funding sources. There are propositions for public-private partnerships. Those will take quite some time. At least this is an intention. We don't expect that all the big push infrastructure projects will be done within 2026. But overall, like I said, we like the direction it's going, but a lot of it, typically as a developing country, do not depend on us entirely. We know that the economy is doing well. We are hoping that barring any external shocks, the momentum would continue.
Okay.
And that is what we mean by the need for us to be a bit more intentional in building resilience locally, by doing a number of fetching the low-hanging fruit in the industrialization drive, value addition around the agric value chain, to be able to build domestic resilience whilst we move on to the bigger things that the budget is also proposing, really.
Thank you for that. And I think that moves straight into AGI, build domestic resilience. You are the manufacturers in Ghana. Does the budget align with an objective that strengthens domestic productive capacity when you look at it as an overall document? Mr. Defo.
I wouldn't say that it does, in the sense that if you look at our economy and the productive sectors, take fast-moving commercial goods. We only control about 30% of production of goods that are on our shelves. The 70% is imported. And this is coming from reliable data from research. So if we want to transform the economy and take control of our economy, we need to be inverting that percentage, where we are scaling up to 70% and then maybe importing 30%. The reality is that most of our manufacturing and industrial plants are struggling. And they are struggling from the cost of credit, the unavailability of long-term finance, energy costs, taxation, etc. But we play in the real economy. We create the jobs. When you look at the GDP and the sources of funding, revenue coming into the GDP, it's mostly from agric, being cocoa because of pricing, not necessarily volumes. It's coming from mineral, the extractive industry, the minerals because of pricing, but they don't create that many jobs. And then also services. Services also don't create that many jobs as industry does. So we need to realign our priorities and focus a lot more on industry, because that is where we can create the jobs. I'll give you an example of something that happened in 2025. Even this year, 2026, if you look at agricultural production, we supported the agriculture industry, but we didn't complete the value chain. So we had a lot of produce and farmers screaming about pricing, and there had to be some stopgap interventions to go and lift those things to bulk storage and student feeding. We should think through the plan. And there are certain commercial infrastructure that government doesn't have to finance. government must leverage PPP arrangements into commercial infrastructure like warehousing, processing plants and things. But as an enabler, when government looks at its policy and where it is focusing its investments, it must bring in the private sector. The private sector is actually not playing in some of those areas because of viability gaps. If you sit with government and look at the PPP arrangement, government's intervention could be closing the viability gaps for the private sector to take over and invest the resources that it has available. We don't need to borrow. It's just a matter of engineering the process and making sure that we deliver on the outcomes that we expect.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Defo. Dr. Mprechu, my question to you is around inclusive growth, because in the past, they'll tell us economies must grow, but development practitioners now say it's not just the quantity of growth, but the quality. So you help us with things like inclusivity, social spending. As overall, when you see the budget, does it suggest it's going to deliver the kind of inclusive growth you talk about?
Thank you very much. And indeed, from our analysis of the budget, largely you will say that based on the allocations, and you could see very huge allocations towards education, allocations towards health, social protection, disability, among others, you could summarize and say that there is a lot of inclusivity in the budget. And indeed, if you look at the allocations that speaks to SDG 1, again, allocations focusing on jobs for young people, you would see that SDG 8, among others, are addressed. But for us doing this kind of analysis, there's always the question of how far do things go, or what is the delivery? Because allocations are not exactly the same as delivery. And we've seen it through analysis of data on our budgets, that we make very good allocations, but when there are really challenges, it is the social services that really deal with the cuts. So for us, the issues around delivery really matter. Again, this budget doesn't go very far in dealing with regional disparities. Regional disparities, regional inequalities continue to be a big issue in Ghana. And so deliberateness in addressing issues of regional inequalities really matter. Again, the broader issues of the multidimensional poverty still remains on our desk. And as a country, there's a need for this budget to deliberately target how to address multidimensional poverty. Indeed, the last of the things I'm going to talk about is the extent to which this budget adopts a gender-responsive targeting approach. Indeed, for the budget to be very effective, we need to deliberately target SDGs. Through our efforts as UNDP, we've supported Government of Ghana with some SDG budgeting, as well as SDG targeting of budgets. But this is only at the level of some ministries, but there's a need to expand this across. And this is how you can ensure that the budget and all the policies around it are very responsive and giving out the real inclusivity that is required.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to end round one with a question to Gordon, and that will also be a start of round two, because round two is about tax and tax policy. So from a tax perspective, how aligned is the budget? That's question one. And sub-question two, when you look at the specifics, for example, of the COVID removal, the realignment of VAT, how will that unlock the revenue base to deliver the development that the government wants? Gordon.
Thank you, Bernard. I believe the work of the taxes, partly were covered by the Commissioner General when he came to the podium. But I must say that our pre-budget survey did a very, tells a compelling story about the fact that, tax policy in the past has not really aligned with business objectives. So you realize that when you look at the VAT architecture, for instance, we have a tax handle where you file about 4 different types of returns in a particular month. So you file the standard rates return, you file the COVID-19 levy return, you file a flat rate scheme return, and then you also file the imported services return under one tax handle. And that brings some level of complexity for businesses. And traditionally when we do this pre-budget service, it comes out strongly as well as this particular year. Now, if you look at the canons of taxation, certainty and clarity of taxes is very important. So as a tax authority or as a minister, as a finance ministry, you want to make sure that the tax policies that you bring are quite clear and certain, so that taxpayers will know, what taxes they are supposed to pay, how much they are supposed to pay, and then how they should file them. That is very important. In fact, when you look at the celebrated mathematician, Albert Einstein, he said one important thing. He said, there's one thing that is very difficult to understand, which is the income tax. And so if a mathematician is saying that income tax is very difficult to understand, then why do we make things complex? And I believe that it's very important that government is moving towards simplicity. And some have said that simplicity is the new sophistication. We believe that as you make things simple, don't make it complex again going forward. Now, when you look at the other policies that we have in the budget in terms of tax, they mention refund automation. Now, if you look at the refund regime that we have now, even for VAT, if you have a refund, you go through a long process to get the refund given to you. You have to go through audit. After the audit is even done and confirmed, you go through different processes before the refund is paid to you. And I believe that if the process is, if it's automated and people can just put their amount in the system and they can get the monies readily available to them, I believe they'll have some lifeline. They'll have more cash flow to do their businesses. And then, of course, they can invest more, because if you invest more, you know that if your money is locked up in refunds, you will get it, for your business. So I believe that if you look at the measures that government is proposing, we are really looking at how they bring them to fruition, how they implement them. As Commissioner General said, in January, we believe that this should be implemented to spur the growth that we are looking for. Now, when you look at the COVID levy also, taking out COVID levy and then also streamlining taking out the cascading effect of the levies, that is about 6% going off. And for individuals, once you are consuming, once you are buying, you are paying this type of taxes. But we believe that if these taxes goes off, what it means is that individuals will have more disposable income and they can spend. And as you spend, you are stimulating growth and you are stimulating production. So we believe that although government is going to lose some revenue through this initiative, we believe that as it stimulates growth, more is going to come into the economy and we are going to see more transactions flowing.
That depends on whether the companies pass on those reliefs to the end user or whether they want to keep them as profits.
Very important.
So that's what Priscilla was thinking ahead when you were saying that. So I just wanted to say that it's not that automatic.
Yes.
So the company can decide to make it a windfall or they can give it to the consumer.
Yes.
But Priscilla, which is better? If there's a reduction in the tax burden on a company for a sales or a VAT, is it better for the company to use it for new investment or to hand it over to us for Christmas to buy extra things? Which one is better for an economy?
Generally, handing it over to the customers is ideal, but in Ghana, we don't tend to see that. So usually you find that investors, business people would rather pocket the relief that goes. We've seen examples of removal of taxes on imports, which do not translate into reduction in prices for the ordinary person. So a lot depends on, in terms of the commodity in question. And typically, like your pure economics micro class, it depends on the elasticity of demand of the good in question. If the seller knows that this is a good that you cannot do without, they would rather not give you the relief. But if it's for luxurious items and others that the demand would quickly respond to a reduction in price, then they would pass that.
Which is why you teach your students that prices are sticky.
Exactly.
Is it upwards or downwards? They don't want to come down, but they are up. So AGI, this one I'm not doing it one man. AGI, why don't you give the relief to the consumers as producers? And then number two, it's a two-in-one question. Number two, you complained about some tax issues in the previous budget. Looking at what has been done in the new budget, how happy are you? The VAT realignment, the NHIL Get Fund, that decoupling and all that. Generally, will AGI say these tax reforms are better for the production of your goods and services?
Let me take it from the end. Yes, they are better. But you should also appreciate the fact that it is not just the consumer who's going to benefit, but the government as well. And the reason the government will also benefit is that we are complaining about access to capital and then the cost of capital. So there's a misconception that when these opportunities arise and the industry doesn't pass them on to the consumer. The reason is that it serves as cheap capital for us. So we turn it over, and if we make profits, the government taxes us. So it is not like if these benefits accrue, then we take it and put it in the owner's pocket. No. It goes into the operations. It helps to reduce the prices, but it takes time to have its effect. Now, the other strong point of industry's benefit by the reduction is that when we are doing pricing, the taxes tend to create a cascading effect on price. Because if at every stage there's some tax being introduced, you just add it up to the end. Now that we are reducing or eliminating some of these taxes, we're going to have lower pricing that eventually will lead to more consumption and then grow the production. I also like to take the opportunity to make this point. We've taken certain fiscal and monetary policy measures to bring down inflation. Now, holding the indices where they are and sustaining it can only be done with production. If we don't use production as a measure to maintain the stability, there's always going to be need for intervention. The fiscal side has finished this honeymoon. You've come out 1 year after elections. There was promise. You've done what you've done in 2025. Revenue dropped from oil and then from taxation, so you couldn't implement all the infrastructure policies that you had out there. Coming into our second year, the citizens are not going to be that patient. You can't continue tightening because that has a negative effect on the economic growth, and there will be pushback.
All right.
So it's good that the team has identified growth. But how do you stimulate growth? It must go into the private sector.
Wonderful.
There's a lot of social intervention, yes, but we must be careful not to grow the vulnerable group because we need to lift them out of poverty. And the only way we can do that is by creating jobs for those vulnerable people.
All right.
So if you are onboarding more households onto LEAP program, it's only telling me that you are, establishing a broader pro-poor policy. You keep more households in poverty and feed them, provide the education, provide all those things. We need to have policies where we are lifting these LEAP households out of poverty. So it should be narrowing. And where can that happen? If those investments are going into industry, we'll be creating more jobs, expanding the economy, and people feel better and prouder if they have control of their own lives.
I'm sure there's a question that we will be debating forever, whether industrial development and employment can ever reach a stage where there will be no need for pro-poor policies. And we've been told that the most effective is LEAP. Indeed, many years ago when I started this job, there was a huge debate about subsidies. And the World Bank said to us, it's better to give the money to the poor person than to subsidize fuel, because the guy who benefits the V8 driver. So, and in fact, the Bible says the poor you always have with you. So I'm curious to know what Amprechum has to say around the issue of pro-poor policies. But I have a last substantive question on taxes. And that has to do with, generally, are tax policies progressive or regressive? Do you do those analyses as the UNDP? Do you put it through a certain machine to say, these tax policies are going to be regressive? And in line with that same question, I didn't see him separate income from property tax, because we are told that property tax really is the most progressive, because there are so many houses costing millions of dollars. If you focus on those, it's more progressive. I didn't see you decouple the two when you, at least on the chart, I just saw income and property tax. So this is an open one. Any thoughts around the need for pro-poor programs? Dr. Amprechum and Priscilla, did you see a clear commitment to property tax in a way that we know can help beef up the tax revenue collection? So, Doc, let me start with you, Amprechum.
Okay, so maybe I'll just start on the broader discussion around tax. And just to say that for this budget, we see a lot of commitment towards ensuring that the tax and all the commitments around it helps the poor. Largely, that is the reflection. But for the incentives that are coming out of this tax, we also see that there's a lot around, for instance, dealing with the threshold for MSMEs, which now moves it to 750, and which means that a lot of businesses can play under the radar for some time. Whereas we see this as very progressive and allowing them to operate. But for tax to really work, it's not, or for tax incentive to really work, it's not really about the profit. My friend from the AGI will really focus on the profit, but for us, we're interested in impact. Do the tax incentives really help companies to generate jobs? That, for us, it's at the heart of the conversation. Again, to what extent are the incentives protecting the most vulnerable? And we see this through the budget. There are efforts to even expand the leave coverage. More could have been done, but this is what we have. For largely what we see, we would say that for the tax incentives to really work, for instance, local area-based tax incentives need to be on board, seriously. Where, for instance, if you set up your business in the Volta region or in the northern part of the country, you're supposed to get certain incentives. Those, for us, we see will be very, very important to stimulate development across the country. SDG-linked tax incentives are very, very key. Tax incentives just for the fun of it is not enough, but they must be deliberately linked to SDGs, particularly SDGs on climate action, SDGs on decent jobs, SDG 8. All those things must be deliberate in the tax arrangement. And indeed, two more things I would say. One is the point that the acting commissioner made about the simplification of the tax system. And for us, these are very, very important, and simplifying them and making it very easy for the small businesses to be compliant is very key. But the last one is really on taxpayer engagements. Through our work with the GRA, we've done quite a bit of work on training frontline staff on how to better engage the public. And we see this as very important. GRA recently launched work around taxpayer engagement, and this is very important to sustain the engagement around taxation, because that is the way by which citizens will come on board and continue to carry the country forward in the area of taxes.
Wonderful. We've put up the 5 key issues on tax on the chart for those who are following to just understand. But Doc, let me just take, Prof, sorry, your thoughts on the tax policies generally and whether they are progressive or retrogressive.
Right. I must say that generally VAT is a consumption tax, and so consumption tax is a regressive tax in a sense that the poor tends to pay more of their incomes in the taxes than the rich. And so when you look at it in terms of the reforms that this budget is proposing, I like the fact that there's been some attempt to reduce the rate. So the rate has gone down by about 1.9%, which is good, 20%. But 20% is still high. I like Mr. Sapon's submission on the drive to digitalize our tax systems, move into taxing digital transactions, which is great. But I must indicate that when I heard of the increase in the threshold of those SMEs, pardon me, I was bombarding him with text messages with regards to what those businesses are going to pay. And I'm glad about the modified tax schemes, because a lot of resources move on within the SME space, the informal sector, and a lot of them do not pay taxes. So when you lift it and you do not also make an effort to collect the tax, then it means that government revenue projections would go down. Because we know that within this budget, COVID levy is taking off, VAT has reduced. The presumption is that with these reductions, it will inure to tax compliance, and then the productivity increases will boost so that overall the numbers would come in. We are basing a lot of the assumptions on the fact that the revenue would be collected. And that is a very important point we need to bear in mind.
Right.
I didn't see much on property taxation. And so that is something that I believe that consistently, I'm not too sure whether because it's a political class who owns the properties. The willingness to collect that, and I must indicate that when I get a property tax bill, I get a bashing at home that I keep advocating for property tax. I should go and pay. I think that it is a fact that we need to do more on property taxation as income levels increase in this country and go down. I mean, I'm expecting that as the tax revenues come in, the VAT in future would come down so that the burden will be lesser on the poor rather than. And I must indicate that overall, we are increasingly going very heavy on social interventions, yet we are not collecting enough taxes. Countries that are heavy on social protection initiatives are very heavy on taxation, particularly when it comes to VAT. VAT proceeds are what are used to cushion the social intervention policies because it is regressive on the poor. So on one hand, you take the VAT, then you give it back in social protection programs through those cushioning programs, really.
Thank you. Let's applaud the panel for so far what they've done. This is the KPMG UNDP post-budget forum happening at Marriott's Hotel. We have 4 rounds of questions. We've done 2 rounds. The 3rd round, I won't ask everybody. I'll just pick a couple of people. Then the 4th round will be done soon, so just bear with us. We're live on ChannelOne television. My name is Bernard Avle. I'd like to go to the 3rd area of financing, investment, and long-term capital mobilization and bring back Mr. Freku. You were explaining how well aligned the budget was in balancing fiscal stability and also spending on important infrastructure. I'd like you to elaborate a bit more on this, on 2 issues. The budget hinted returning to the domestic bond market. It didn't appear to contemplate going back to the international capital market. I'd like some thinking around this. I also saw the minister talk about possibly touching our stabilization and heritage funds from oil to finance alleged green commercial energy projects. I say alleged because that's what he said. That's what I saw in there. I didn't get the elaboration. So I just want your general thoughts around how well does the budget think through long-term finance of the right kind? And can you comment on those 2 specifics around the heritage fund? They want to change the law so it can be invested because they say it's been giving us 1% invested globally, and the Saudis and Norwegians are all now using it for green energy. And then the domestic capital market, the domestic bond market. So, Mr. Freku, this round is your round. So I'll give you more time. Answer that, and I'll just take 2 comments from the panel. Go ahead.
So thank you for that. But let me signal that also going back to the bond market and other market, I'll be careful here because it's basically a policy issue. It first has to drop from the minister, and then we can speak about it. But given our experience with regards to the issues we had with this debt restructuring, this bond issue, we are careful. We are rather putting more energy in local resource mobilization. That's how come. We are very supportive of the GRA and other financial institutions because as soon as you go beyond committing with the aim of going for bonds, it's still borrowing. Then you are going on the trajectory that will bring you into final hazards. So like I said, from the experience that we've just had and the consequences thereof, and the strictness of things we have to follow just because we've gone into this, the debt, the credit ratings, all these consequential issues, we are very careful to move easily into this direction again. When we exhaust the local revenue opportunities, which the GRA makes us believe that we are capable of mobilizing quite a significant amount from that angle, then we'll look at that. I think Director Akes...
No, Mr. Akes, are you able to comment on the domestic? You see, I am not leading you into temptation, but the minister did, listen, the minister did say, all right, the minister did say that we'll go back to the domestic bond market. He said it. So I'm not putting words in his mouth. So if you're saying policy issue, my general question is around how are we approaching that? All right. He's mentioned that we want to revitalize the domestic bond market as against just T-bills, which is short end of the stick. being cautious of what happens in the international capital market. So somebody, please hand him a mic for me. Just his general thoughts or elaboration of his understanding of that. Michael. Oh, sorry. If you can comment on that, thank you. Then I'll come back to you on the financing of green projects. Thank you. I think it's off.
Right, Bernard.
Yes.
So thank you very much. As you may be aware, in 2022, when we commenced the domestic debt restructuring, the financing of government from 2023 to 2025 has solely been on treasury bills. So definitely the bond market has not picked up. And it's also for a reason. When you read the contents of the executive, when you read the memorandum, the new memorandum of the restructured bonds, those bonds are supposed to be not fragmented, but then should be the benchmark bonds. So new bonds away from that cannot be issued till its 3rd anniversary, which will be early next year. So that is the basis behind the Honorable Minister mentioning that the bond market will be open effectively next year, and the conditions are ripe for that. Remember, the average weighted interest rate on the restructured bonds was about 9.1%. Inflation is 8% now, and you're seeing that the Treasury bill as a yield curve is around 10. So the environment is extremely important, and that is why it gives positive elements for next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Coming back to Director Freku on long-term financing of infrastructure, you said, as for the big push, we've budgeted for it. But the minister hinted in the budget that our oil resources are not being optimized in the current arrangement of investing them international banks at very low interest yields. And he suggests that there will be a need to change the act around petroleum revenue so we can invest these monies in what he calls commercially viable green energy projects. We want to understand more about that. So whether you or Mr. Akes or whoever, it is directly a quote from the budget. So if you want to touch on that and let Director Akes also comment, I'll be happy.
So go ahead.
Right. Thank you very much. So, since 2011, we had a PRMA, and it has 3 funds. But the petroleum funds are the stabilization, as you said, and the heritage funds. And if you read the law says it can only be invested in asset classes that are of investment grade and only international. Now, from 2011 to date, if you look at the net profits from that, it is just barely 1% per year. Now, that is not too different from all other sovereign wealth funds observation on the continent. So you send it up into those countries, they're coming back onto the continent and getting weighted average of 8%, etc. It's been almost 13, 14 years. But if you read the law, I don't think he said amendment of the law. I think he said in terms of the application of the executive instrument in relation to the law. Okay. And that provides some flexibility for the finance minister to look at the qualifying instruments. And that's what he referred to as bringing it up that bankable projects that can repay, like the energy that you rightly mentioned, will be good options at this stage of observing the application of the law over the past 13 years.
Anybody on the panel wants to comment on this? AGI?
Well, I want to comment on this because I did serve on PIAC a few years back, and what we need to understand is that the Heritage Fund is not for us. It is for the generations to come. Because the oil resource is finite. And therefore, it is being put aside, and also because of our own behaviors, bad behaviors, that we don't go and invest them in any risky bets for profit and then end up dissipating those funds. So they are to be put in very secure investments for the long-term benefit of the generations to come, because at that time, we will not have the oil resources. So the important thing is how we manage what we are getting now and leave those funds for them. There is a cutoff point where I think we are there now, after 15 years, the earnings on the fund can be utilized, but the fund itself, the principal, should stay for our children and our grandchildren. So this debate came on some time ago when Minister, what do you call him? No, not Tufriata.
Is this?
Osafumafu.
Okay.
Raised the issue about the fact that we need the money now to survive, and then we want to leave it die for our generations. How does it work out? So he wanted to change the policy or have the law amended so that we can utilize the funds now. But I think that the spirit behind it is not for us to make use of those funds now. The other thing that I would like to mention with respect to the bond market is that if you look at our history, we've not been very disciplined with how we use money that we borrow. So if we're going into a bond market now because the environment is ripe, what are we using the money for? We must be specific to apply the funds to income generation ventures. I mean, look at the Kotoka International Airport. It was funded with some oil resources as a counterpart fund, and then a loan was taken from some Turkish bank to build the airport. It's paying for itself, right? We didn't put in more than $40 million for a project that cost about 250. So that is how you engineer the private-public partnership to fund commercial projects. Even when you look at roads, some roads can be tolled. But if you look at how much we are charging for tolling, nobody is going to be able to do that on a commercial basis. So there's a viability gap. That is where the state or the government comes in and says, look, if we are fixing the rate at 5 cedis per vehicle, and the amount required to be able to finance commercially that project is 10 cedis, then we are coming in with a model to fund the remaining 5 cedis so that the private sector, it's a shared risk arrangement. If government carries all the risks for every infrastructure project, we would certainly end up borrowing and increasing the cost of financing with interest rates. When the private sector is bringing in its money, it doesn't charge interest, it's focused on profit. So it will come up with innovation, it will come up with, development strategies to make the projects viable so that it can earn its profits at the end. But when you go for loan, upfront, you are building cost. So we should be careful how we go into the bond market and what we use the funds for.
Let's put our hands together for him. Thank you very much. If there's any final comment on long-term financing, I'll take it. Otherwise, I'll end with the last round on competitiveness of the business environment and those types of issues and the alignment with SDGs. So, Gordon, did you want to make any comment on long-term finance, or you're fine? You're fine. All right. So let me start with UNDP, Dr. Amprechum. So basically, competitiveness and enabling environment. What are your thoughts? Do you have any comments around, if you look at the budget as an overall document, does it position our private sector to be competitive compared with external forces? And what role can development partners like UNDP play in things like green energy transition? There's COP30 going on right now. We need cheaper options of energy and that type of thing. Any quick thoughts on those?
Thank you. I think if you look at this budget, one, there is this whole interest, really, and intent from the state towards renewable energy. And this you can see on the incentives provided around that area. If you look at the pre-budget survey, there was also about 66% interest in this whole renewable energy. Renewable energy has become important now because, one, it can reduce the cost, but also green logistics now do attract some good green financing. So a lot of businesses are going in that direction. Again, there is also the opportunity for green job creation. But we at UNDP and with our partners, we have continued to support government on the Renewable Energy Master Plan. We've been very, very active in that area, supporting government in that area. Again, we have what we call the Article 6 under the Paris Agreement, where we're working with the government of Switzerland and the government of Ghana on climate smart rice production, among others. These we see as very good opportunities for businesses to stay competitive. At the enterprise level, we worked very, very closely with small businesses, micro businesses, medium businesses, and where we're taking them through energy efficiency audits, helping them to ensure that the systems they put in place are energy efficient, and importantly, we've gone with them through what we call the green logistics, ensuring that their pipelines for production are very compliant with green systems. So for us, some of these are the initiatives that we've had with enterprises, and the whole idea is to ensure that they are competitive, especially under the AFCFTA. So some of these are very, very important that we're doing. Going forward, we see that there's a need to scale up some of these green incentives for businesses. There's a need to expand green financing, targeting a lot more businesses in that space so that we can get good outcomes for businesses. Indeed, the broader picture is how they can meet global standards. So the environmental and social governance structures need to be in place for a lot of businesses. And so for us, these are why we see that when we invest in these areas, businesses can be very, very competitive.
Wonderful. I'm taking closing thoughts from the panel now. Let me come to Dr. Chumesi Bafo. Lord Boateng said, the devil is in implementation. We have great plans. What are your thoughts around the implementability of the budget? And I'll take closing remarks from each of you as well as we go forward. So I'll start with Prof.
Thank you, Bernard. I think that the devil is in the detail, really. We've had experiences over the years with, very beautiful budgets and flowery speeches, yet the implementation is always the issue. Particularly when it comes to the fact that government is riding on the back of the big push agenda, which is a massive infrastructure drive. If the funding is available, then we need to ensure value for money. And so in that context, I think the minister points out of the value for money or the office at the ministry. I hope that it will not also be another level of bureaucracy for delays and others. We should really work to effectively generate the efficiency that the system needs. Production is not attractive in Ghana because the infrastructure is not here. The cost of doing business is too high. We need the hard and soft infrastructure to connect raw materials to factories for the middle industrial sector to generate the necessary jobs. Ghana has transformed from agriculture into a service-led economy. But when you look at the pattern of jobs we have, jobs have not been transformed. So essentially, you see that within the employment space, a lot of people are still working in agriculture, for example. When you look at employment, it constitutes about 38% of total employment in agriculture, yet agriculture constitutes 22% to GDP. And that is an indicator that the sector is not productive. The industrial sector is shrinking. A lot of efforts must go in there. I like the fact that we are trying to create competitiveness through introducing other options, commodities like the palm plantations and others. Those are medium-term to long-term issues, but I'm excited that at least we are taking advantage of the stability we have presently to think and look into the future. So overall, we are watching the space for the effectiveness, and particularly in terms of the path of fiscal discipline. We know that the IMF program is ending mid of next year. Post that, it will be critical for government to be on that stability path for us to see what this budget has in the future, really.
Thank you, Priscilla. Let me take Gordon's comments, tax partner, way forward. Where do you see this budget taking us?
All right, thank you very much. So I'm also looking out for the implementation, especially the Fed aspect, where government is looking at implementing the technology solution for the VAT. And I would say that it's been long for Ghana coming to the table, because if you look at other countries like Rwanda, Kenya, and then Tanzania, and even in Europe, in the case of Rwanda and co, when they implemented Fed, revenue went up about 20%. And then for Kenya, again, another 20%, 20 to 30%. When you look at Italy, for instance, when they introduced the Fed, they got about 2 billion euros increase in their revenue. And I think that this is something that we should have done a long time ago. I mean, about 2 or 3 years ago, we saw the GRA doing e-invoicing, but that stalled. And we expect that this particular one that has come will come to, help to get more revenue for government. Because if you see the budget, there are a lot of projects that government is intending to do. Some people are saying that as you scrap, the COVID levy and also the cascading effect, how are you going to get the revenue from? I believe that if we are able to implement the Fed and also enforce compliance, because also there's evidence from the OECD that if you enforce compliance, tax revenue goes up. So if you do things like auditing, if you do things like sanctions, you get about 5 to 20% in tax revenue. And we expect that the GRA will go out there, enforce and comply, and make sure that people comply with the tax laws as they are going to implement them. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, I'll just open the floor for a few quick questions or comments, and then I'll give the last word to Mr. Freku, because he's head of budget. I just like him to reassure us that he believes this budget has the ingredients to deliver the type of balanced growth we all want. So that will be his last comment. We've put up 2 mics in the aisles. We'll just take a few quick questions. Tell us your name, your organization, and if it's a question or contribution, let's make it short and snappy so we can wrap up. It's 12:20. It will be after the comments as well. Yes. So it's 12:22. We are going off air at 12:30. So I really need to move so that we can get the maximum benefit from the television coverage. So who's asking the first question? All right, please go ahead.
Okay, right. I'm Charles. Dr. Charles Etuahine. I don't mention organization to a taskman.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
Dr. Charles Etuahine.
Okay.
They will not mention your organization to taskman in the public.
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
I'm not going to mention my
You mentioned organization. Okay, no problem. Okay. Thank you.
KPMG, UNDP. Yes, thanks so much. The Minister of Finance, I hear you saying that the VAT, whatever, has grew by 1.9%. I think it's almost 6%. So you have to go and check your calculation again. Because government was getting 2 revenues. When I pay levy at the port, 5%, he kept it. When I add value, okay, he charged under 5%, he keep it, become 2. Now we are going to lose 1. So I don't know where your 1.9% is coming from. You're only considering the cumulative effects and then COVID-19 levy, which is 1, and the cumulative effect is 9.9, making 1.9, but you're going to lose 5%, because the 5% was 2, you're going to lose 1 at the port. Those who are paying at the port, because when I pay now, I keep it. When I sell, I claim.
You made that point.
So you don't get 1.
Yeah.
So please get it again.
No, I think he actually said it.
Okay, right.
Gordon made that point.
Also, with regard to the implementation, when are you implementing it?
All right.
GRA, when are you bringing your practice notes? Because now you've announced it, individuals are expecting a reduction in prices.
Wonderful.
So when are you doing that?
Thank you.
Also, when the threshold from 200,000 to 700,000. So if I've already applied for 200,000 and I'm doing 200,000, I'm now still selling around 180,000. I'm not at 200,000 yet. I'm about to reapply.
Good point.
To get the what do you call it? To get to the 700,000.
Thank you.
And again,
hey, you have a lot of questions. We have just.
Oh, okay, right. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll let Gordon address some of those. Any other points? All right. I actually wanted to comment on the recommendation around having a tax calendar. So I think you can talk a bit about that, and also the issue about the 6%. I think you hinted it. If you can elaborate a bit on that.
All right. So when it comes to the tax calendar, in terms of being able to predict and know what tax reforms the GRA will bring, I think in 2024, the government did some work they call the medium-term revenue framework. And in that document, you find the different tax measures the government intends to implement going forward. So some of the things we are seeing today, all the measures we are seeing here, most of them are in that document. And so I think what the GRA and the ministry needs to do is to do more education and also create more access to those documents for people to know what the term tax policies are going to be like. In terms of the levies, you note that the 5%, the 6%, the 1%, and the other 5%, the cascading effect of it, makes cost of production quite expensive. So once those ones are going down, we believe that it should go down and then make, stimulate consumption. The other aspect that I want to also comment on is the registration threshold. When you move from 200,000 to 750, what you are doing is that those, as Professor Chumesi said, VAT is regressive. But I believe that through this process, you are going to have a progressive approach to VAT, because those who are within the 200,000, those who buy, if you go to a corner shop, and the revenue of those guys are below the 750, it means that you can buy without paying VAT. So in a way, you are encouraging progressive taxation. If I go to the mall to go and buy, and their revenue goes to the 750, it means I'll pay the tax, I'll pay the VAT on those ones. So in a way, there's an encouragement to progressive tax also when you look at the threshold as well.
We've put up a QR code. Please scan it on your phone and answer just 3 questions. It's our in-house real-time budget perception survey. The answer will give us a sense of the sentiments of the audience here around key policy initiatives in the budget. For example, your level of confidence in the Value for Money Office in achieving efficiency, accountability, and the rest of them. Please answer for us right now. Michael will share the results before we leave. Just point your phone to the QR code. It's a simple questionnaire. I'd like to read 2 questions from our online participants, or just comments, then I'll take closing remarks. This contributor is called Pope. He says, trade is critical in every aspect of an economy, and so if all gaps are filled, especially blocking fraud and accounting accurately for goods and services that come and go, all government policies will fly without stress. This one is a long one, and it says contribution. We must be intentional about resource mobilization if we want to continue with substantial spending on social protection. We definitely have to improve property tax mobilization, but MMDAs must first be supported to undertake realistic property valuation based on which rate imposed are applied. Expanding the tax net requires leveraging on low-hanging fruit, such as rationalization of the fiscal regime in the natural resource sector instead of overburdening citizens. This is Dr. Eric Odro Osai. Sounds like a familiar name. There's a very long one here from Wasiu Yusuf. There's need for more practical and citizen-friendly approach to tax compliance once effective measures will be able to integrate tax clearance requirements into the delivery of key policy and private sector objectives. It's very, very long. I think we get what you say. AGI, I'll give you the last but one word, and then I'll let the gentleman from the ministry take the final comment. I'd like to say thank you to our viewers on Channel One. By the way, we have to go off air at 12:30. It's 12:29. Thank you for watching this special edition of the KPMG UNDP Post-Budget Forum, coming to you live from the Marriott Hotel. My name is Bernard Avile. Regular programs proceed. Let me come to you, Mr. Defo, with your closing thoughts.
Thank you very much.